Israel continues its air and ground attacks across multiple areas of the Gaza Strip. According to the Palestinian official news agency Wafa, Israeli occupation artillery targeted the Tufa and Zaytun neighborhoods east of Gaza City. At the same time, Israeli warplanes bombed several areas east of the Burej refugee camp in central Gaza, while airstrikes were also carried out on areas southwest of Rafah in the south, blowing up several buildings. These attacks were conducted simultaneously with artillery bombardment, while Israeli naval warships fired numerous shells at coastal areas in northern Gaza. Despite the ceasefire agreement that entered into force on October 10, 2025, Israel continues its military violations in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus stated that more than 18,500 patients in Gaza still urgently need medical evacuation. He noted that the WHO recently supported the evacuation of 18 patients and 36 companions to Jordan for trauma care, cancer treatment, and other serious conditions, thanking Jordan for its continued solidarity. Tedros emphasized that more than 4,000 of those in need of evacuation are children, and called on more countries to open their doors to Gazan patients and to resume evacuations to the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. At the political level, the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee introduced budget proposals allocating at least $3.3 billion in military aid to Israel under the State Department's Foreign Military Financing Program. The funds are expected to be transferred within 30 days of the legislation's enactment and used for advanced weapons systems. At the same time, the proposals foresee new restrictions on U.S. security assistance to the West Bank and Gaza, conditioning such aid on certification by the Secretary of State that U.S. defined criteria are met and that alleged torture and other human rights violations by Palestinian security forces have ended. On the ground, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. The Gaza Government Media Office announced that 127,000 of the 135,000 tents in the Strip have become uninhabitable due to extreme cold conditions. Media Office head Ismail Al-Thawabta stated that displaced families are living in worn-out tents and isolated areas, while shortages of blankets, mattresses, and heating equipment exceed 70%. He stressed that this is not a temporary crisis, but the direct result of Israel's policy of comprehensive destruction. Al-Thawabta further reported that approximately 90% of Gaza's urban infrastructure has been destroyed, more than 2 million people displaced, and over 288,000 families left without shelter. Since October 8, 2023, Israel has repeatedly targeted shelters and aid distribution centers, bombing 303 shelter sites and 61 food distribution centers. During this period, more than 71,000 Palestinians were killed and over 171,000 wounded. The United Nations estimates the cost of rebuilding Gaza at around $70 billion. Despite the ceasefire, Israeli attacks have continued, with 451 Palestinians killed and 1,251 injured since October 10, 2025. In this context, UNICEF announced that more than 100 children have been killed during the ceasefire period. UNICEF spokesperson James Elder stated that since the ceasefire began on October 19, 2025, an average of 1 child per day has been killed, underscoring that life in Gaza remains suffocating and that bombardments did not stop during the truce. Meanwhile, Gaza's health system remains on the brink of collapse. Over more than 2 years of attacks, most hospitals and health facilities have been damaged or destroyed. Blockade measures and restrictions on aid entry have caused severe shortages of medicine and medical supplies. According to Gaza's Ministry of Health, medicine shortages have reached 52%, while shortages of medical consumables stand at approximately 71%. Medical aid trucks entering Gaza have been reduced to less than 30% of monthly needs, pushing the health sector into a critical crisis. Nearly 2.4 million Palestinians continue to survive under extremely harsh humanitarian conditions. At the same time, the Palestinian government has called on the United Nations to take urgent action against Israeli attacks in the West Bank. Palestine's permanent representative to the UN, Riyad Mansour, warned that the situation in the village of Ras Ain al-Auja near Jericho has reached a dangerous level, stating that armed Israeli settlers and the Israeli army are carrying out violent attacks aimed at forcing Palestinians off their land. Compounding the crisis, a winter storm has struck Gaza, hitting displaced Palestinians living in makeshift shelters. Strong winds caused walls to collapse onto tents, killing 4 people, including a child, while Gaza's Ministry of Health reported that a 1-year-old baby died from extreme cold. Aid organizations warn that there are no winter-resistant shelter options across Gaza, as more than 2 million displaced Palestinians face their 3rd winter in tents since the war began. Against this backdrop, ongoing Israeli ceasefire violations and the United States' second phase rhetoric are increasingly debated. Analysts argue that the proposed transition process prioritizes security while leaving political representation, sovereignty, and the will of the Palestinian people unresolved, risking not a lasting solution, but a postponed crisis. The Gaza-based Palestinian government reported that Israel committed 1,244 violations during the first phase of the ceasefire, including direct fire on civilians, incursions into residential areas, aerial bombardments of civilian homes, and the demolition of public buildings. The ceasefire has now entered a second, more complex phase, including plans for a Gaza Peace Council, further Israeli withdrawals, discussions on disarmament, a technocratic governance committee, large-scale reconstruction, and the deployment of an international stabilization force. U.S. President Donald Trump announced the establishment of the Gaza Peace Council, while Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz openly praised the Israeli army for demolishing more than 2,500 buildings in Gaza after the ceasefire, admitting that attacks continued under instructions from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. These were the latest developments regarding Gaza. We will continue to follow the situation closely and bring you new updates as they emerge. To stay informed, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Echo Middle East wishes you a good day.